Hey guys! Tonight we are going to travel back in time, not to a battlefield or a royal court, but to the very bowels of a metropolis at the peak of its power and the depths of its filth. Tonight we begin our descent into the world of the Victorian London sewer hunter, by first understanding the city that created you, the city you navigated, the city that choked on its own immense, terrible success. Imagine yourself in London, around the middle of the 19th century. The air you breathe is a thick, yellow-grey soup, a mixture of coal smoke from a million chimneys, fog rolling in from the river, and the ever-present, cloying smell of life and decay. This is the heart of the largest empire the world has ever known. Its docks are crammed with ships from every corner of the globe. Its new railways slice through ancient landscapes, and its factories churn out the goods that define an entire era. Wealth, progress, and invention are all around you, visible in the grand architecture, the horse-drawn carriages of the rich, and the gas lamps that begin to flicker on at dusk, casting long, dancing shadows on the cobblestones. But that is only one side of the city. For you, and for millions like you, London is a different beast entirely. It is a labyrinth of crowded, narrow streets, of sprawling slums where entire families live in a single damp room. It is a city of constant noise, the clatter of iron-shod wheels on stone, the shouts of street vendors, the distant rhythmic pounding of machinery, and the persistent coughs of its inhabitants. And above all, it is a city of smells. Not just the industrial haze, but something more primal, more intimate. The smell of unwashed bodies crammed together, of rotting food scraps thrown into the gutters, and most overpoweringly, the smell of human waste. For in this city of wonders, this pinnacle of human achievement, there is no system to deal with what over 2 million people leave behind every day. The old cesspits, brick-lined pits beneath houses, are overflowing. Many houses have no sanitation at all. Waste is simply tossed from windows into the streets or drains, where it joins the refuse from tanneries, slaughterhouses, and dye works. All of it, every last drop, has only one final destination, the River Thames. The Thames, that ancient waterway, the city's artery and its soul, is no longer a river. It has become an open sewer. Stand by its banks, and you do not see clear flowing water. You see a sluggish, brown-black tide, thick with an unholy stew of everything the city discards. You see floating islands of filth, animal carcasses, and objects you cannot, and do not wish to, identify. On a warm day, the surface of the river seems to bubble, as methane gas from the decomposing sludge at the bottom breaks free and rises into the air you are breathing. And this brings you to the summer of 1858. It is a summer of relentless, baking heat. The sun beats down on the city, day after day, week after week, and as the temperature rises, the great river begins to cook. The water level drops, exposing vast banks of stinking black mud. The heat accelerates the decomposition, and from the Thames rises a smell so powerful, so profoundly offensive, that it will be given its own name in the history books, the Great Stink. This is not a background nuisance. It is an all-consuming physical presence. It permeates everything. It seeps through closed doors and sealed windows. It clings to your clothes, your hair, your food. In the Houses of Parliament, situated right on the riverbank, the nation's most powerful men are driven from their chambers. They try to hang curtains soaked in chloride of lime over the windows, a desperate attempt to neutralize the stench. But it is useless. The smell of a dying river is stronger than any chemical. The business of governing an empire is almost brought to a standstill by the sheer suffocating power of the city's own waste. For you, and for everyone around you, this smell is more than just unpleasant. It is terror itself, made manifest in the air. You live in the age of the miasma theory. The leading scientific minds, the doctors, the public officials, all believe that diseases like cholera, typhoid, and diphtheria are spread by bad air, by these foul smells. The stench rising from the river is in your mind the literal breath of pestilence. Every lungful feels like a gamble with death. You watch your neighbors fall ill, you see the death carts in the street, and you connect it all directly to the foul air you are forced to breathe. The Great Stink is not just an inconvenience, it is a city-wide death sentence, hanging in the very air. It is this profound existential fear that finally forces a change. The government, unable to function and facing a panicked populace, is compelled to act. A plan, long debated but always postponed, due to cost, is finally pushed through with incredible speed. A monumental engineering project is commissioned, led by a man named Joseph Bazalgette. His vision is audacious, to build a vast hidden network of intercepting sewers, a subterranean river system of brick and iron that will capture the city's waste before it reaches the Thames and carry it far downstream, out to the estuary. The construction is a Herculean task. It involves digging up streets, diverting traffic, and creating over 1,000 miles of new tunnels and pipes beneath the city's feet. It is the single greatest public works project of the era. And as this new dark brick-lined world takes shape beneath your feet, it creates an entirely new ecosystem, a place of flowing filth and darkness, hidden from the sight of respectable London. It is a world where the city's discarded secrets will flow, and in its depths, where lost things of value might be found, a new and desperate occupation is born. A profession for those with nothing left to lose, for those willing to brave the filth and the dark, for a few meager coins. This new engineered underworld will soon become your workplace. The prelude is over. The stage is set. You stand on the precipice, looking down into the darkness that the great stink created. A world built of fear and brick, a world that is about to become your life. The decision to descend is not one made in a moment of thought or sudden impulse. It is a decision forged by an empty stomach, by the feverish cry of a sick child, or the persistent knocking fist of the rent collector at the door. Your preparations begin before the sun has managed to pierce the perpetual shroud of smoke above the city's chimneys. This is not the preparation of an artisan in his workshop or a soldier in his barracks. Yours is a silent, almost animalistic ritual, for your tools are humble, and your purpose is survival. What you wear is your armor. What you carry is the thin line between life and death. It begins with the clothes. To call them garments would be overly generous. They are more like rags given human form. They are heavy wool trousers and a jacket, stiffened by years of accumulated grime, torn and patched countless times. This fabric is not merely for modesty. It is your first line of defense. The hardened texture can just barely turn the initial slice of a sharp piece of glass or rusty metal in the sludge. These clothes carry a permanent scent that no amount of washing can ever remove, an ingrained miasma of damp earth, organic decay, and sharp chemicals. It is a part of your identity, a brand that makes people on the street hold their noses as you pass, that sets you apart from society. On your feet are your boots, perhaps your most vital possession. They need to be thick leather, with hobnailed soles for grip, but someone like you cannot afford a new pair. Yours are cast-offs, bought for a pittance at a street market, their leather cracked and prone to leaking. You try to mend them with rags, with tar, with any water-resistant substance you can find, because dry feet are a luxury, but uninfected feet are a necessity. You can never be entirely sure what lies beneath the slick ooze. One step can bring you down on a hidden shard of a bottle. The next can find your foot tangled in something foul. The thick sole of your boot gives you purchase on the slippery brickwork and provides a fragile barrier against the unseen dangers below. Then come the tools. Every sewer hunter has their preference, an extension of themselves adapted over time to their own method of working. The most common is a long, sturdy staff or hoe, about 6 feet in length, tipped with an iron hook or a small spade. This tool is your hands, your eyes, and your weapon. You use it to rake through the muck before you, trying to feel the shape of objects beneath the surface. The dull scrape of metal on a coin or a copper nail is a sound you learn to distinguish from the rasp of stone. It is also your walking stick, used to test the solidity of the ground with every step, and it is the only thing that stands between you and a swarm of aggressive sewer rats, or worse, should you encounter them in the dark. Strapped to your chest with a sturdy cord is a simple soot-stained oil lamp. This is your sun, your moon. Its flickering yellow light is the only thing that pierces the absolute blackness around you. The light illuminates a small circle for only a few feet in the seemingly endless brick tunnel. plunging everything else into even deeper, more menacing shadows. The tallow or cheap whale oil in your lamp is your most precious resource. Its few hours of burn time dictate the length of an entire working day. If the fuel runs out, or if the lamp is accidentally dropped and extinguished, you are plunged into a total, disorienting darkness. This is not a simple absence of light. It is a claustrophobic prison that robs you of all sense of direction, that leaves you deafened and blinded. Slung over your back or shoulder is a coarse burlap sack or canvas bag. This is where you will deposit the treasures you find throughout the day. A handful of coins, rusty nails, pieces of bone, a length of lead pipe. The sound of each find dropped into the sack is a small reassurance that you will not go hungry today. As the bag grows heavier, the strain on your back increases, but the burden on your soul lessens just slightly. This sack is the tangible result of your labor, the filth-caked value that will be exchanged at the end of the day for food, for rent, or for a glass of cheap gin. Part of your preparation is also mental. You leave the world of the surface behind. You try to forget the feeling of sunlight, the scent of fresh air, the normal cadence of human voices. You steel yourself for the world you are about to enter, a world that is cramped, wet, and hostile. You learn to control your breathing, to remain alert to sudden noises, and to suppress the feeling of panic. This is more than a job. It is an exercise in survival. Every day before you lift that iron manhole cover, you take one last deep breath. It is likely the last clean breath you will have for some time. Then, laden with your tools, you descend into the city's stomach, armed in your ragged apparel, because in the world below, there is no room for weakness or for the unprepared. You use the tip of your hoe to pry the iron manhole cover loose. The heavy metal groans as it scrapes against the paving stones, opening the mouth of the world below. A wave of air rushes up to meet you. It is not merely a smell, it is a physical presence, an assault that stings your eyes and catches in the back of your throat. It is the concentrated essence of decay from 1,000 homes, the sharp tang of chemical effluents, and the sulfuric breath of trapped gases. Your first instinct is to recoil, to slam the cover shut and run. But hunger is a more potent master than fear. You swing your legs into the dark opening, searching with your boot for the first iron rung of the ladder. The rungs are slick with a greasy film, cold and untrustworthy beneath your worn leather soles. You begin your descent, your lamp casting dancing, erratic light on the brick walls only hinting at the depth below you. The noise of the city, the rumble of carts, the distant shouts, the general hum of life begins to fade with every step you take down. It is replaced by the echo of your own sounds, the scrape of your boots on metal, your own strained breathing. The patch of daylight from the open cover shrinks from a square to a slit, then to a pinprick, and then it is gone entirely. You have reached the bottom. Your feet leave the relative security of the last rung and touch the floor of the sewer. This is not solid ground. Your boots sink to your ankles in a thick, clinging mire that pulls at you with a sickening embrace. The sensation is nauseating. This is not just mud and water, it is the digested refuse of a city, the accumulated filth of decades. Every step you take makes a squelching, sucking sound as the ooze reluctantly releases your foot. Maintaining your balance is the first and most constant battle. Your long hoe becomes a third leg, sinking into the sludge, probing for stable footing. Then comes the darkness. It is a blackness unlike any you have known on the surface. This is more than the absence of light. It is a substance in its own right, a heavy blanket that swallows you. The small wavering pool of light cast by your lamp only serves to emphasize the infinite void around it. The light glints on the wet brick walls, giving them a ghostly sheen, and reflects in iridescent rainbow slicks on the oily surface of the water. Your eyes strain to adjust, but they can never fully succeed. Shadows move and writhe, and the slightest flicker of your lamp can create a momentary phantasm, a fleeting jolt of fear. Your mind begins to fill in the blanks, imagining a potential threat in every unlit recess, and then the sounds. The familiar noises of the surface world are gone, replaced by the symphony of the underworld. The dominant sound is the constant guttural flow of the water, a sluggish current making its way through the main channel nearby. You hear the rhythmic, hollow drip of water seeping from a side tunnel. But beneath these steady sounds are others. The slush and splash of your own movements sound unnaturally loud. In the distance you might hear the groan of a rusted iron grate as debris pushes against it. Perhaps most unsettling are the sudden unidentifiable noises. A scurrying sound, a splash, the rapid movement of something disturbed by your presence. Are they the sewer rats you've been warned about, or just a trick of the acoustics? You cannot be sure, and this uncertainty keeps your nerves perpetually on edge. The air is heavy, almost chewable. Each breath fills your lungs with a damp, foul vapor. The stench is so pervasive that after a while your nose almost stops registering it, but it is still there, lingering as a taste at the back of your mouth. You feel a metallic, sour tang on your tongue. This is not just the smell of organic decay, it is a cocktail of chemicals from the tanneries, industrial waste from factories, and worst of all the invisible but deadly gases, methane and hydrogen sulfide, the byproducts of putrefaction. You do not know their scientific names, but you know instinctively that this air is a poison. Your head feels a little light, your stomach turns. This sensory assault is the great trial of the first descent. Your mind is deprived of everything it considers normal: clean air, solid ground, adequate light, familiar sounds. Every one of your senses is screaming that you are in a place where humans are not meant to be. Your body tells you to turn back, to scramble up the ladder into the light, but then you feel the cold, hard weight of the hoe in your hand. You remember the empty sack on your back. You think of the gnawing hunger waiting for you back on the surface, and so you suppress that first primal wave of panic. You steady your breathing, hold your lamp firm, and take your first slow, deliberate step forward into the dark river. You are no longer a surface dweller. You are a sewer hunter, and your work has just begun. Once the initial sensory overload begins to recede into a constant, thrumming background of misery, your purpose takes over. Your senses, which were just moments ago purely defensive, now shift to the offensive. You are no longer just surviving, you are hunting. Your eyes, now slightly more accustomed to the gloom, learn to look past the overwhelming filth and search for the specific glint of metal, the unnatural shape of a man-made object in the organic sludge. Your hoe is no longer just a crutch. It is a sensitive probe, an extension of your fingertips, translating the textures of the unseen world below the dark water. What are you hunting for? The answer is both simple and deeply complex. Anything that the surface world has lost, and that has retained some fragment of its value. The primary quarry, the object of your most fervent hopes, is money, coins, a dropped farthing, a halfpenny shaken loose from a pocket, a silver shilling that slipped through a street grate. You learn to listen for the faint, solid chink as your iron-shod hoe strikes something denser than stone or brick. You learn the particular weight and feel of a coin, even through the layer of slime that coats it. Finding one is a moment of pure, visceral success. You pull it from the muck, wiping it on your already filthy trousers, the profile of the monarch barely visible. This small, cold disc is a tangible victory. It is a loaf of bread. It is a measure of gin. It is survival, quantified. But coins are rare. They are the diamonds of your trade. The bread and butter, the daily grind, is the hunt for scrap metal. London is a city shedding its skin, constantly building and demolishing, and its detritus flows beneath its streets. You search for copper, the most prized of the common metals. It washes down from the dockyards in the form of loose sheathing nails from the hulls of ships. It comes from discarded household items, kettles and wire. You learn to spot its dull green patina, a different shade from the slime that surrounds it. You look for lead, heavier and more valuable by weight. It comes from offcuts of roofing, fragments of old plumbing, and the scrap from plumbers' workshops. Its weight is unmistakable when you lift a piece with your hoe. Iron is the most common, but the least valuable. Rusty nails, broken bolts, discarded tools. You collect it because everything has a price, however small. A full sack of rusted iron might only fetch a few pence, but a few pence can mean the difference between eating and not. Then there are the more macabre treasures. You are hunting for bones. The sewers that run near Smithfield Market, or the numerous back-alley slaughterhouses are often thick with animal remains, shin bones, femurs, ribs, all of it tossed into the drains. These are not worthless. There is a thriving trade for bones, which are sold to bone grinders and glue makers, or burned to create bone charcoal for use in sugar refining. You learn to distinguish the solid, heavy feel of a large bone from a piece of wood. The work is gruesome, sifting through the remains of slaughtered animals, but it is a reliable source of income. In the back of your mind, a faint, desperate fantasy may linger. The dream of the big score, a lady's lost gold ring, a gentleman's dropped silver locket. Stories of such legendary finds circulate among the other shore workers in the cheap pubs where you gather. They are almost certainly exaggerated, myths born of desperation. The reality of your treasure is far more mundane. A lost silver spoon from a wealthy house, flushed away by a careless servant, would be the find of a lifetime. It would feed your family for a month. But you do not count on such miracles. You count on the slow, painstaking accumulation of the city's metallic dandruff and skeletal waste. And for every potential treasure, there is a universe of lethal trash that surrounds it. This is the constant nerve-wracking negotiation of the job. Your hands, protected only by the calluses you have developed, sift through a slurry containing your potential reward and your potential death. The greatest and most common danger is broken glass and pottery. Shards from gin bottles, shattered plates, broken window panes. They hide just beneath the surface of the sludge, their sharp edges invisible, until they slice through your skin. A cut in this environment is not a minor injury. It is an open invitation to infection. The filth of the sewer, a potent soup of bacteria, seeps into the wound, which will fester and swell. Without access to proper medicine, such a wound can lead to fever, gangrene, and a slow, agonizing death. You are also sifting through the unspeakable. Medical waste from hospitals and illicit back-alley clinics finds its way here. Syringes, blood-soaked rags, amputated tissue. The fear of disease is palpable. You are wading through the very medium of cholera and typhoid. And then there is the endless organic waste, rotting food, decaying animal carcasses that are not bones for profit, but bloated sacks of putrescence, and the human effluent that is the sewer's primary component. This lethal trash is not just a hazard to be avoided, it is the very medium in which your treasure is suspended. To find the one, you must immerse yourself in the other. Your life depends on carefully, meticulously sorting through London's discarded death, hoping to find just enough to sustain life for one more day. You have learned to navigate the physical dangers of the dark. You are wary of sharp objects. You test the ground before you step, and you have become accustomed to the ever-present threat of a rat's bite. But the most dangerous enemies in this subterranean world are the ones you cannot see, the ones you cannot fight with your hoe, the ones you breathe in with every lungful of heavy, foul air. These are the invisible killers, the agents of disease and decay that work their way into your body slowly, insidiously, or with shocking, violent speed. Your very understanding of the world tells you that the air here is poison. The miasma theory is not an abstract scientific concept for you. It is a lived reality. The overpowering stench you endure is in your mind the physical form of pestilence. Every headache, every bout of nausea, every dizzy spell is a confirmation of this belief. You are breathing in death. This fear is magnified 100-fold when you consider the diseases that plague your city. Cholera is the great terror, a spectre that haunts every slum and tenement. You have seen what it does. You have seen strong men reduced to shivering, hollowed-out husks in a matter of hours, their bodies expelling fluids until there is nothing left. You know that the source of cholera is in the water, the very water you are standing in. Every splash that touches your lips, every accidental gulp of the foul liquid, feels like a death sentence. Typhoid fever is another constant shadow. It is a slower, more insidious disease, often called gale fever or ship fever, because it thrives in crowded, unsanitary conditions. The sewer is the ultimate unsanitary condition. The fever builds over days and weeks, bringing with it headaches, a spotted rash, and a delirious stupor. For someone like you, whose livelihood depends on daily labor, to fall ill with typhoid is to be ruined. There is no sick pay, no one to care for you. A week of lost work means eviction, and a prolonged fever often means a lonely death in a squalid room or a pauper's hospital bed. You are wading through the source of these diseases, a direct conduit to the city's sickness. But the acute, terrifying epidemics are not the only threat. Your work exposes you to a slow, creeping form of self-destruction, chronic poisoning. The air in the sewers, especially in the stagnant, unventilated side passages, is often deficient in oxygen and rich in toxic gases. You know it by its names: foul air, choke damp, or the spirit. The science of it is unknown to you, but you know its effects. Methane, the product of decomposing organic matter, can displace oxygen, leading to asphyxiation. More dangerous is hydrogen sulfide, the gas that smells of rotten eggs. Even in low concentrations, it causes dizziness, headaches, and respiratory irritation. In higher concentrations, it can overwhelm the nervous system in an instant, causing you to collapse without warning, falling face down into the very sludge that produced the gas. Many a sewer hunter has simply vanished, their lamp found sitting on a ledge, their body lost to the depths, a victim not of an accident, but of the very air they breathed. This constant exposure takes a toll that you see in the faces of the older shore workers. You see their persistent, racking coughs, the result of years of inhaling foul air and airborne bacteria, a condition they call the sewer throat. You see their skin, which is rarely healthy, constantly immersed in filthy water. It develops rashes, ulcers, and weeping sores that refuse to heal. The smallest cut or scratch can become a site of chronic infection. Their eyes are often inflamed and bloodshot from the ammonia and other irritating fumes. They carry a pale, sallow complexion, the look of people who live their lives largely deprived of sunlight and clean air. There is also the poisoning you ingest. You cannot work for hours in this environment without touching your face, your mouth. You may try to eat your meager lunch of stale bread and cheese on a relatively dry ledge, but the filth is on your hands, under your fingernails. You are slowly, day by day, ingesting a cocktail of heavy metals: lead from old pipes, mercury from industrial workshops, arsenic from tanneries. All of these are present in the sewer water. These poisons accumulate in your body over years. They cause stomach ailments, nerve damage, a trembling of the hands that makes your work ever harder, and a gradual decline of your physical and mental faculties. You feel the effects yourself: the persistent ache in your joints, the metallic taste that never quite leaves your mouth, the shortness of breath you feel when climbing back up the ladder at the end of the day. You are aging at an accelerated rate. A sewer hunter of 35 has the worn, haggard look of a man of 50. Your body is paying the price for your meager earnings, trading years of its life for penny. You exist in a state of permanent low-grade sickness. Health is a distant memory, a concept belonging to the clean world above. Down here, in the realm of the invisible killers, you are simply in a race to find enough treasure to sustain yourself before your body finally, inevitably, succumbs to the poison that is your workplace. The slow, creeping death of disease and poison is a constant companion, but the sewers also harbor threats that can extinguish your life in a matter of seconds. These are the moments of sudden, violent chaos, the unpredictable events that transform your workplace from a merely hazardous environment into an immediate death trap. Every descent carries with it the knowledge that you may not ascend. The most terrifying and relentless of these threats is the tide. The new sewer system designed by Bazalgette is a marvel of engineering, but it is inextricably linked to the mighty tidal River Thames. The main intercepting sewers are designed to flow with a gentle gradient, but many of the older, smaller tributary sewers you frequent are still vulnerable. When the tide on the Thames rises, it pushes back against the outflow of the sewers. In some sections, especially near the river's edge, this can cause the water level in the tunnels to rise with shocking speed and force. You are constantly aware of this danger. You learn to read the signs, the subtle shift in the speed and direction of the current, the way the water laps higher against the brick walls. But a sudden rainstorm on the surface, coinciding with a high tide, can create a flash flood. It begins as a distant low rumble, a sound that is different from the usual gurgle of the sewer. The rumble grows into a roar, there is no time to think. There is only time to run. You abandon your hunt, scrambling for the nearest ladder, your heart pounding in your chest. The water surges around your legs, rising from your ankles to your knees in seconds, its current strong enough to knock you off your feet. It is a brown, frothing wall of water, filled with debris, wood, refuse, anything caught in its path, all of which becomes a battering ram in the narrow tunnel. If you cannot reach a ladder in time, you will be swept away, smashed against the brickwork, and drowned in the darkness, your screams lost in the thunder of the flood. The structure of the sewers themselves is another source of sudden peril. While Bazalgette's new main lines are feats of sturdy brickwork, many of the older tunnels you explore are a patchwork of aging, decaying construction. They were built decades, sometimes centuries before with less care and skill. The constant dampness erodes the mortar between the bricks. The immense weight of the streets above, the endless passage of horse-drawn omnibuses and heavy carts, creates vibrations that can weaken the structure. You are always listening. You listen for the faint trickle of sand from between the bricks above you, a sign that the mortar is failing. You listen for the ominous groan of shifting earth. A cave-in happens without warning. A section of the arched roof can simply give way, burying you under tons of brick and sodden earth, or a side wall can collapse, trapping you in a dead-end passage. Death can be instantaneous, a crushing finality, or it can be a slower, more horrific fate, pinned by debris, your legs broken, lying in the filth with a fading lamp, knowing that no one will ever know where to find you. You are acutely aware that the very ground you stand on, the very roof over your head, is a fragile barrier between you and oblivion. Then there is the simple, terrifying prospect of getting lost. The sewer system is a labyrinth. It is a three-dimensional maze of main tunnels, tributary pipes, storm drains, and forgotten, bricked-up passages from older systems. When you are deep inside, every brick-lined tunnel looks the same in the feeble glow of your lamp. All sense of direction, so clear and obvious on the surface with its landmarks and sunlight, vanishes completely. You try to keep a mental map. So many paces down this tunnel, turn left at the junction with the oval pipe, avoid the passage with the collapsed grate. But it is easy to become disoriented, especially if you are pursuing a promising trail of debris or fleeing a sudden danger. You might take a wrong turn, wander into an unfamiliar section, and then find you cannot retrace your steps. The panic that sets in is cold and sharp. Every passage seems to lead to another identical one. Your precious lamp oil is burning down. You shout, but the sound is swallowed by the endless tunnels, distorted into a meaningless echo. To be lost in the sewers is to be condemned to walk until your light fails, and then to sit in absolute darkness and silence, waiting for starvation, dehydration, or madness to claim you. It is a solitary death, a quiet disappearance from the world, leaving no trace but a name crossed off a lodging house register. Every time you descend, you gamble not just with your health, but with your very presence in the world, knowing that a single wrong turn or a rumble of falling bricks could erase you completely. You are not alone in this dark, flowing world. While the surface teems with human life, the sewers foster their own distinct and often hostile ecosystem. The creatures that thrive here are as hardened and desperate as you are, perfectly adapted to the filth and darkness. And they view you not as a fellow inhabitant, but as an intruder, a competitor, and sometimes as a source of food. The most numerous and unavoidable of your cohabitants are the rats. These are not the timid creatures of the surface world that scurry away at the sight of a human. The sewer rats are a different breed. They are large, bold, and vicious. Generations of living in this environment of plenty, a constant supply of refuse and carrion, have made them large and fearless. Their fur is matted and greasy with the filth they live in. Their eyes small red points that catch the light of your lamp. You see them everywhere. They move in chittering packs along the ledges just above the waterline, their claws making scraping sounds on the brick. They swim through the sludge with surprising speed, leaving V-shaped wakes in the dark water. You and the rats have an uneasy, hostile truce. You are bigger and carry a weapon, which usually keeps them at bay. But their sheer numbers are a constant threat. A lone scavenging rat will likely flee, but a cornered one, or a mother protecting her nest, will attack without hesitation, leaping with surprising agility and sinking its long yellow incisors into your leg or hand. The greatest fear is encountering a large swarm, perhaps drawn to a particularly large piece of refuse, like a dead animal. In such a situation, their collective boldness can overcome their fear of you. They can swarm, a tide of living fur and teeth, and an attack by multiple rats is a life-threatening event. A bite is not just painful, it is a near-certain sentence of infection. The rat bite fever is a known affliction, bringing on shivering fits, agonizing joint pain, and a festering wound that can lead to blood poisoning and death. You learn to strike the brickwork with your hoe as you walk, a percussive warning of your approach, hoping to give the swarms time to disperse before you reach them. Beyond the rats, there are other more mythologized but equally dangerous creatures. Stories circulate in the taverns about feral dog packs that roam the larger sewer conduits. These are said to be the descendants of lost or abandoned dogs, who have formed their own societies in the depths, hunting rats and surviving on whatever else they can find. A close-up encounter is rare, but the sound of distant barking echoing through the tunnels is enough to make the hair on your neck stand up. A wild dog, starving and territorial, would be a formidable opponent in the cramped confines of a tunnel. Even more pervasive are the tales of the black swine of the sewers. Legends speak of a pregnant sow that escaped from a butcher's cart near the Fleet Ditch, found its way into the sewers, and farrowed a litter. Her offspring, the stories go, grew wild and ferocious in the darkness, their descendants becoming a monstrous subterranean race of pigs. While a breeding population of feral pigs is unlikely, it is entirely possible for individual animals to get lost in the system, and a panicked, powerful boar cornered in a narrow passage would be an incredibly dangerous foe, capable of goring a man with its tusks. These stories, whether true or exaggerated, serve a purpose. They are a constant reminder that anything lost or discarded by the surface world could, potentially, be waiting for you in the dark. Your lamp will occasionally illuminate other, smaller forms of life. Eels, surprisingly resilient, are sometimes found in the less polluted sections of the sewer that are fed by freshwater streams. Fungi of all kinds grow in strange, pale formations on the damp brickwork, some of them bioluminescent, casting a faint, ghostly green or blue light in the utter darkness. Spiders weave thick, sticky webs in the corners of dry passages, their webs so coated with grime they look like sheets of grey felt. These creatures are a part of the psychological burden of your work. You are an alien in their kingdom. Their presence is a constant reminder of the primal, untamed nature of the world you have entered. The sudden scurrying of a rat just beyond your lamp's glow, the splash of an unseen creature dropping into the water, a distant, unidentifiable sound, all of these keep your nerves frayed, your senses on high alert. You learn to move with a wary respect for these other inhabitants. You are a trespasser in their domain, a fragile creature of the light trying to steal a living from their world of eternal darkness and filth. Each journey below is not just a hunt for treasure, but a negotiation with the native life, a gamble that you can get in, take what you need, and get out before the rightful and far more numerous inhabitants of the sewer decide to reclaim their territory. You might feel utterly alone in the oppressive darkness of the sewer, but you are part of a hidden and misunderstood tribe. You are a shore worker, or a Tosher, names used by outsiders, with a mixture of revulsion and curiosity. While your work is solitary, your existence is not. Above ground, in the warrens of London's poorest slums, a loose and informal society of your fellow hunters exists, bound by a shared experience that no one else can possibly comprehend. This society has no official meeting halls, no written rules, no elected leaders. Its headquarters are the grimmiest, cheapest public houses in areas like Southwark or Lambeth, places where the smell of stale gin and unwashed bodies can almost mask the sewer stench that clings to your clothes. Here, for the price of a penny glass of gin, you can find a semblance of community. You gather in dark corners, your lamps and tools left by the door, and you speak a language only you can understand. You trade information. You might learn that a section of the old Fleet sewer has become blocked. creating a pool where heavy objects might settle, or that the city authorities have started bricking up a particularly lucrative entry point. You warn each other about a new, particularly aggressive pack of rats in the western tunnels, or a section of brickwork that looks ready to collapse. This exchange of information is a delicate dance of competition and cooperation. On one hand, every other shore worker is your rival. Every coin they find is a coin you did not. A tip about a good location is given reluctantly, perhaps in exchange for another piece of information, or as a repayment for a past favor. There is a deep-seated secrecy to your trade. A man who makes a particularly rich find will rarely boast of it, for fear of being followed or having his territory invaded. And there is indeed a sense of territory. The vast labyrinth of the sewers is informally partitioned. Certain groups, often families or people from the same neighborhood, will traditionally work a specific set of tunnels. These claims are not legally recognized, but they are enforced by an unwritten code of conduct. To knowingly hunt in another man's territory is a grave offense, a violation that can lead to threats, violent confrontations in a dark alleyway, or sabotage of your tools. A new hunter learns quickly, either through a quiet warning or a harsh lesson, which areas are open ground and which are considered private property. This system is not about ownership, but about a fragile attempt to impose order on a chaotic existence, to manage the limited resources of the underworld. Yet, despite the rivalry, a faint and gritty fraternity exists among you. Only another shore worker can truly understand the gnawing ache in your back at the end of the day, the constant dread of the tide, or the unique horror of your lamp flickering and dying in a deep tunnel. This shared trauma forges a bond. If a man goes down and does not return by nightfall, it is the other shore workers who will notice first. A small informal search party might be formed, not out of pure altruism, but out of a pragmatic sense of mutual dependence. The sewer that claims one of you today could claim any of you tomorrow. There is a quiet understanding that in your line of work, your only safety net is each other. You also share a common enemy, the world above. You are united by the contempt and disgust you face from the clean society. The way people cross the street to avoid you, the way shopkeepers demand you leave your filthy sack of findings outside, the jeers of children, all of these daily humiliations forge a sense of collective identity. You are outcasts, pariahs. In the pub, amongst your own kind, you can drop the pretense of shame. You can complain, curse, and share stories of the ignorance and arrogance of the surface dwellers. This community also serves a vital economic function. It is in these pubs that you connect with the middlemen, the scrap merchants and bone collectors who buy your day's haul. These men are often ruthless, driving a hard bargain, knowing you are desperate, but they are a necessary part of your world. You learn from the older Toshers how to haggle, how to spot a dishonest scale, and which merchant gives the fairest price for copper or lead. It is a harsh education in the economics of the gutter. This hidden society, this network of rivals and reluctant allies, is your lifeline. It provides the knowledge, the unwritten rules, and the sliver of human connection that makes it possible to face the descent again the next morning. It doesn't make the job any less brutal, but it makes it, just barely, survivable. The end of your working day is marked not by a clock, but by the diminishing fuel in your lamp, or the growing weight of your sack. The ascent up the iron ladder is often more punishing than the descent. Your muscles ache from hours of stooping and probing, your lungs burn from the foul air, and the sack of scrap on your back feels impossibly heavy. Pushing the manhole cover aside and hoisting yourself back onto the street is a moment of profound and complicated relief. The first sensation is the light. Even on a grey, overcast London day, the brightness is dazzling to your subterranean eyes. It feels harsh and intrusive, and you squint, shielding your face as your pupils slowly, painfully contract. The second is the air. It is not fresh in any real sense. It is still the smoky, thick air of the city, but compared to the stagnant vapors of the sewer, it feels almost clean. You take a deep, shuddering breath, a reflex your body has been craving for hours. For a brief moment, you feel like a man resurrected. But this feeling is fleeting. As your senses readjust, you become acutely aware of the chasm that separates you from the world you have just re-entered. The transition is not seamless. It is a violent collision between two realities. The noise of the city, which had faded into a distant memory, now rushes back in a chaotic torrent. The clatter of hooves, the cries of vendors, the murmur of conversation. It sounds alien and overwhelmingly loud. You feel exposed, vulnerable, a creature of the dark, suddenly thrust into the glaring spotlight of the surface world. Your very presence is a disruption. People give you a wide berth. A mother walking with her children will pull them close, turning their faces away as you pass. A well-dressed gentleman will curl his lip in disgust, perhaps holding a scented handkerchief to his nose. You do not need a mirror to know why. You are caked in the filth of the sewer. Your clothes are stiff with dried sludge. Your boots leave wet, foul-smelling prints on the pavement, and you carry with you a powerful, undeniable aura of decay. This stench is your brand, an invisible wall that separates you from the rest of humanity. You cannot enter a respectable shop or tavern. You are a walking, breathing embodiment of the filth that the city desperately tries to hide beneath its streets. This social isolation extends even to your own home. If you are lucky enough to have a family, they too bear the stigma of your profession. Your wife struggles to wash your clothes in a pail of cold water, a futile battle against an unbeatable grime. The smell clings to your shared living space, a single room in a crowded tenement. Your children might be taunted at school, if they are fortunate enough to go to one, for having a Tosher as a father. You bring the sewer home with you, not just on your clothes, but in the social ostracism that shadows your family. There is a deep and unspoken shame that hangs in the air of your small room, a tension born of the love for the man who provides and the revulsion for the means by which he provides. After a long day in the sewers, your body craves rest, but the return to the light brings its own set of tasks. Your first stop is the scrap merchant, a grimy yard where your day's labor will be weighed and valued. The haggling is exhausting, another battle to be fought when all you want to do is collapse. You feel the constant suspicion that you are being cheated, that the scales are rigged, but you have little power to protest. You take what you are given. With a few coins clutched in your hand, you make your way through the streets. Perhaps you buy a loaf of bread, some cheese, maybe a small portion of cheap meat if it was a good day. The baker might serve you with tongs, reluctant to let your dirty hand touch his counter. Then often, your final stop is the public house, the one that will have you. Here you can drown the day's horrors and the evening's humiliations in a glass of cheap, burning gin. The alcohol offers a temporary oblivion, a dulling of the senses and the soul. It silences the echoes of the sewer and the sting of public scorn. Returning to the light is not a return to a safe haven. It is merely an exchange of one set of dangers for another. You trade the physical perils of the sewer for the psychological cruelties of the surface world. Down below you fear for your life. Up here, you are forced to confront your complete and utter alienation from society. You are a ghost at the feast of Victorian progress, a necessary but repulsive part of the city's machinery. As you finally stumble back to your tenement room, the meager earnings from a day of risking death clutched in your pocket, you understand that you do not truly belong to either world. You are a permanent resident of the miserable twilight in between. Let's dissect the economics of your desperation. The treasure you risk your life for would seem to an outsider to be pitifully insignificant. Your work is a grueling, real-world lesson in the chasm between labor and value. At the end of a long, back-breaking day, you emerge from the sewer, your sack heavy on your shoulder, and make your way to the scrapyard. This is the moment of truth, where your haul is translated from a weight of filthy metal and bone into the currency of survival. Imagine a typical, average day. You have been lucky, you have not been injured, you have not been caught by the tide, and your lamp has not failed. After 8 to 10 hours of wading through muck, your sack contains a collection of common finds. Perhaps 5 or 6 pounds of rusted iron, nails, bolts, a broken buckle, a pound or two of heavier, more valuable lead, likely a strip of old piping, maybe a small handful of animal bones, and if you are fortunate, a few pieces of copper wire or some ship's nails. And on this average day, you found 2 coins, a farthing and a halfpenny, caked in grime but still recognizable. At the scrap merchant's yard, your findings are unceremoniously dumped onto a large, greasy scale. The merchant, a man whose expression never changes from one of weary cynicism, pokes through the pile with a stick. He offers you a price for the lot. The iron might fetch you a penny per pound. The lead, perhaps 3 or 4 pence a pound. The copper is the prize, maybe 7 or 8 pence for the small amount you have. The bones will add another penny. Your 2 coins are worth exactly what they are, 3/4 of a penny. In total, for a full day of risking life and limb, your gross earnings might be around 1 shilling, or 12 pence. From this, you must subtract your expenses. The oil for your lamp costs a penny or 2. You may need to have a tool repaired, or replace a broken strap. A realistic net income for a long, arduous day's work is often no more than 10 pence. What can 10 pence buy you in the London of the 1860s? It is just enough to live, but never enough to get ahead. A 4-pound loaf of bread, the staple of your diet, costs about 6 pence. A room in a common lodging house, which offers a straw pallet on the floor shared with a dozen other souls, costs 4 pence a night. Your entire day's earnings are consumed by the absolute bare-bones necessities of food and shelter for one person. If you have a family, the calculation becomes even more grim. A single room in a tenement, your private slum, could cost 3 or 4 shillings a week. This means you need to earn an average of 6 or 7 pence every single day, without fail, just to keep a roof over your family's head. Rain, sickness, or injury are not just inconveniences, they are economic catastrophes. A single day without earnings puts you on the path to eviction. 2 or 3 bad days, and you and your family are on the street. There is no room in this budget for comfort, and barely any for sustenance. Your diet consists of bread, cheap potatoes, and maybe some watery gruel or soup. Meat is a rare luxury, perhaps a few scraps of bacon, or a sheep's head bought from a barrow for a couple of pence on a very good week. You drink tea, but it is the cheapest, lowest grade leaf, reused until it offers only pale, brown water. For a fleeting escape, you might spend a penny on a glass of gin, the infamous mother's ruin, which offers a quick and cheap path to oblivion. This is the brutal arithmetic of your life. You are literally wading through human waste and risking death from disease, drowning, and toxic gas for an income that barely keeps you at the level of subsistence. You see the wealth of the city all around you, the grand carriages, the well-fed merchants, the new buildings rising to the sky, but it is a world as distant from you as the moon. The value of your haul is not measured in its potential to improve your life, but only in its ability to postpone your death by another 24 hours. The filthy coins you pull from the muck are a perfect metaphor for your existence. They have been lost, discarded, and buried in filth. By retrieving them, you give them value again, but in the process, you are irrevocably tainted by the filth yourself. The cost of survival is the absorption of this filth into your body and your soul. You are trading your health, your dignity, and your future for 10 pence a day. It is a terrible bargain, but it is the only one on offer in the dark, flowing world beneath London's streets. For years your world, as horrific as it is, has been a stable one. The chaos of the old sewers provided a perverse kind of opportunity. The poorly designed drains, the frequent blockages, and the direct dumping of refuse created pockets and traps where lost valuables could accumulate. You have learned the geography of this filth, the secret topography of London's waste. But even as you perfect your grim craft, a force of progress and order is moving beneath the city, a force that will unintentionally but irrevocably render your existence obsolete. That force is Joseph Bazalgette's Great Sewer Network. You are aware of its construction. On the surface you see the massive trenches being dug, the streets torn up, the armies of navvies, navigators, as the laborers are called, toiling with shovels and pickaxes. You hear the rumble of steam engines powering cranes and pumps. To most of London, this is a symbol of salvation, the long-awaited answer to the great stink and the threat of cholera. It is progress made manifest in brick and iron. To you it is an omen. Bazalgette's system is built on a principle of efficient, relentless flow. The new intercepting sewers are massive tunnels, some large enough to drive a train through. They are built with a precise constant gradient, a fall of 2 feet per mile, calculated to maintain a flow speed of about 1.5 miles per hour. This is the self-cleansing velocity, a speed just fast enough to keep solid matter suspended in the water, preventing it from settling and creating blockages. This single brilliant piece of engineering is your death sentence. As sections of the new network become operational, the character of the sewers begins to change. The lazy, meandering streams of filth in your old hunting grounds are diverted into these new, swift-flowing arteries. The pools of stagnant water, where heavy items once settled, begin to dry up or are flushed clean. The relentless current of the new system is too powerful. It picks up everything, coins, scrap metal, bones, and carries it inexorably downstream, towards the new pumping stations at Abbey Mills, and the outfalls far beyond the city. The treasure is no longer being deposited, it is being efficiently exported. The authorities also begin to exert a new level of control over the subterranean world. The new system is a prized piece of civic infrastructure, and its integrity must be maintained. Teams of official workers, known as flushers, are employed by the Metropolitan Board of Works. Their job is to regularly inspect the tunnels, clear any nascent blockages, and ensure the system runs smoothly. These men are not scavengers, they are employees, uniformed and equipped. They see you not as a fellow worker, but as a trespasser, a nuisance, a potential saboteur. The manhole covers that were once your clandestine portals are now more frequently locked. The flushers carry keys, granting them official access. When they encounter you in the tunnels, they will order you out, sometimes with threats of arrest for trespassing on the board's property. The law, which had for so long ignored the sewers, is now beginning to assert its authority in the dark. Your traditional, unwritten claim to this territory is being overwritten by the legal code of the surface world. The very air of the sewers is changing. The new system is designed to be better ventilated, to prevent the buildup of explosive and toxic gases. While this makes the environment marginally safer, it is also a sign that this world is no longer being left to fester. It is being managed, controlled, and sanitized. The wild, forgotten frontier that you navigated is being tamed, surveyed, and annexed by the forces of order and hygiene. Your daily haul diminishes, the familiar passages yield less and less. You are forced to venture into older, more dangerous, and more remote branches of the sewer system that have not yet been fully integrated into Bazalgette's network. These places are even more hazardous, their structures more decayed, the risks of cave-ins and foul gas even higher. You are being pushed to the absolute margins, competing with more and more of your fellow Toshers for a dwindling supply of refuse. The rivalry in the taverns grows sharper, the territories more fiercely contested. You are a casualty of progress. The very solution that is saving the city of London from being poisoned by its own filth is also strangling your livelihood. The official gaze of engineers, sanitarians and bureaucrats has penetrated your dark world, and it has found you wanting. You are an anachronism, a relic of an older, dirtier, more chaotic time. Your profession was born from the city's failure, and now it is being destroyed by the city's success. As you watch the clean water fountains being erected on the streets above, and hear the politicians praise the new era of public health, you understand that every brick laid in Bazalgette's grand sewer is another nail in the coffin of your grim and desperate trade. While you are fighting for your existence in the literal darkness, your life is also being brought into a strange, distorted kind of light by the world above. You and your kind have become objects of fascination for the reading public. You are subjects of journalism, characters in the great, sprawling narrative of London itself. The most significant voice in this process is that of a pioneering journalist and social investigator named Henry Mayhew. In the late 1840s and through the 1850s, Mayhew undertook a monumental project to document the lives of the city's poor in a series titled London Labour and the London Poor. He does not simply observe from a distance, he ventures into the slums, the rookeries, and the taverns, interviewing his subjects directly and recording their stories in their own words. One day, this brings him to you. He seeks out the shore workers, descending into your world, not to scavenge but to understand. His published accounts are a sensation. For the first time, the literate middle and upper classes are given a detailed, first-hand look into the lives of people they have only ever glimpsed as shadowy, foul-smelling figures on the street. Mayhew's prose paints you as a strange and fascinating tribe. He describes your distinctive clothing, your specialized tools, and your secret language of slang. He meticulously catalogues the things you search for, from the most common scraps of iron to the almost mythical finds of silver spoons. Reading his words is a bizarre experience. You see your life reflected back at you through a strange lens. He is sympathetic, highlighting the incredible hardship and danger of your work. He details your meager earnings and the constant risk of death. He gives you a voice, allowing your testimony to appear on the printed page, a moment of recognition in a world that otherwise renders you invisible. But there is another side to his portrayal. In making you a subject of scientific and social inquiry, he also subtly transforms you into something other. He describes you as a wandering tribe, as a subterranean race, as if you were exotic specimens from a distant land rather than men living just a few feet beneath the city's pavements. He emphasizes your strangeness, your grimy appearance, your separation from the norms of civilized life. The public reads these accounts with a mixture of pity, morbid curiosity, and a shiver of fear. You are a human story, but you are also a horror story, a bogeyman to frighten children with, a testament to how far a man can fall. This public imagination, fueled by Mayhew's work and lurid newspaper articles, casts you in a fixed role. You become a living symbol of London's dark underbelly. Artists create dramatic engravings depicting you with your lamp held high, a solitary hero in a gothic underworld of dripping tunnels and monstrous rats. These images are romanticized, exaggerating the drama while glossing over the numbing, mundane reality of the work, the endless hours of sorting through featureless slime for a meager return. This newfound fame does you no favors in your daily life. It reinforces your status as an outcast. People on the street may now look at you with a flash of recognition, but it is not the recognition of a fellow citizen. It is the gaze one reserves for a creature in a zoological exhibit. They see not a man trying to feed his family, but the sewer hunter, a character from a book. This persona makes you a target for mockery, but also for a certain kind of perverse interest. Wealthy slum tourists might even try to hire you as a guide, wanting a safe, voyeuristic thrill by peering into the world you inhabit every day, a world they can retreat from at will. Mayhew's work, for all its groundbreaking detail and empathy, ultimately places you behind a glass wall. It allows the surface world to inspect your misery without ever truly having to confront its own role in creating it. You are a problem to be studied, a curiosity to be documented, a social condition to be lamented. The narrative of the brave, strange Toshers becomes so powerful that it obscures the simple, brutal truth. You are a desperate man doing a terrible job because you have no other choice. Your life has been transformed into a story for others to consume, and in the process your own humanity has been subtly but surely diminished. You are no longer just a man, you are a living piece of folklore trapped by the very words that sought to give you a voice. The image fixed in the public mind, the romanticized engraving, the figure in Henry Mayhew's accounts, is almost always that of a man. A rugged, solitary, male figure, battling the elements in the depths. But this image, like so much of the surface world's understanding, is incomplete and misleading. The brutal economics of poverty are indifferent to age or gender, and in the darkest corners of this trade, you are not alone. There are women and children down here with you. Their presence is a testament to the deepest levels of desperation. For a family to send its matriarch, or a young child into the sewers, is a sign that all other options have been exhausted. These are often the widows of men, killed in industrial accidents, or lost to the sewer itself, or families where the primary male earner is too sick or crippled to work. They are the absolute last line of defense against total starvation and homelessness. The work is even more dangerous for them. A woman, often smaller in stature, and possessing less physical strength, struggles to wield the heavy hoe, or pry open a rusted grate. She is more vulnerable to the physical violence of the city's underbelly, not just from the other creatures of the sewer, but potentially from desperate or cruel men, who see her as an easier target to rob or intimidate. Her presence violates the rough masculine codes of the trade, and she may be met with hostility and resentment from male Toshers who see her as competition, driving down the already pitiful prices for scrap. She may work in the shallower, older ditches and storm drains that feed into the main sewers, places considered less productive but marginally safer. Or she may operate at the river's edge at low tide, a mudlark, sifting through the foul-smelling mud, exposed by the retreating Thames. Here the work is done in the open, under the grey sky, but the filth and the danger from sharp objects and disease are just as present. She hunts for the same things as you: coal dropped from barges, scraps of rope, bits of metal. Her earnings are almost always less than a man's, her smaller frame able to carry less. Her finds perhaps less substantial. Even more heartbreaking is the sight of children in this environment. Boys, some as young as 7 or 8, are sent down into the tunnels. Their small size is sometimes seen as an advantage, allowing them to squeeze into narrower pipes and passages that an adult cannot enter. They are nimble and quick, their young eyes sharp, but they are also exquisitely vulnerable. Their immune systems are less robust, making them more susceptible to the waterborne diseases that fester in the filth. A fall that might only bruise a man could break a child's limb. The psychological toll is immeasurable, their childhood stolen and replaced with a daily immersion in darkness, fear and decay. These children learn the trade from a father or an older brother, mimicking the movements, learning what to look for, what to fear. They quickly adopt the hardened, wary expression of the veteran Tosher, a look of profound weariness on a face that should be open and carefree. They are often sent to scavenge in the most marginal, least desirable areas, the scraps of the scrap pickers. The story of these women and children is almost entirely unwritten. They are ghosts within a ghost society. When Mayhew interviewed the shore workers, his focus was overwhelmingly on the men, the perceived heads of household and primary practitioners of the trade. The women and children were footnotes, dependents, their labor unseen or considered merely auxiliary. They do not appear in the heroic engravings. Their voices are absent from the official reports. Their existence speaks to a truth even more profound and disturbing than your own struggle. It shows that there are layers even within this hell. If you, an able-bodied man, are at the bottom of the social ladder, these women and children occupy a rung even lower, forced into the same terrifying world, but with fewer defenses, less strength, and even less hope. Seeing a young boy, his face smeared with grime, his small hands expertly sifting through the sludge with a makeshift tool, is a sight that can break even the most hardened heart. It is a mirror reflecting a horror deeper than your own, a stark reminder that in the great grinding machine of Victorian poverty, no one is spared. For you and your fellow shore workers, there is no prospect of retirement. There is no pension, no quiet cottage to retreat to in your old age. The trade does not release its practitioners, it consumes them. The final fate of a sewer hunter is rarely dramatic or noteworthy. It is almost always a quiet, ignominious slide into oblivion, a final surrender to the accumulated injuries, diseases, and poisons of the job. The heroic death, the one that might make a small sensationalist paragraph in the penny press, is the exception. To be swept away by a sudden tidal flush, or buried in a dramatic cave-in, is a fate feared by all, but met by few. These sudden ends are at least conclusive. They have a narrative, a final violent act. But this is not the typical ending. The typical ending is much slower, much quieter, and much more common. Most often, death comes in the form of disease. It begins as the familiar sewer throat, the racking cough that never leaves you. Over years, this deepens into something more severe: consumption, bronchitis, pneumonia. Your lungs, ravaged by years of inhaling toxic fumes and bacteria-laden moisture, finally give out. You become too weak to make the descent. You lie on your straw pallet in a lodging house or a cold tenement room, listening to the city outside, your breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps until it finally stops. Or it might be a festering wound that finally claims you. A simple cut from a piece of glass, which on the surface might have healed, becomes a gateway for infection in the sewer's filth. The wound swells, turns purple and black, and the poison spreads through your blood. Fever sets in, followed by delirium. You die not from the initial injury, but from the slow, agonizing corruption of your own body from within. Chronic poisoning is another common, insidious executioner. The lead, the mercury, the arsenic ingested over a lifetime accumulate in your tissues. It leads to the tremors, a palsy that makes your hands shake so violently you can no longer hold your tools steady. It addles your mind, causing memory loss and confusion. It brings on a painful failure of your kidneys or liver. You simply waste away, your body breaking down organ by organ, a slow and invisible disintegration. When death comes, it is unlikely to be marked by any ceremony. If you die in a common lodging house, your body will be found by the deputy, the man who runs the place. Your few possessions, your tools, your ragged clothes, the lamp will be claimed to cover the cost of your last few nights' rent. If no family comes forward to claim you, and few can afford the cost of a proper burial, your fate is the pauper's grave. Your body will be placed in a cheap pine coffin, or perhaps just a canvas sack, and transported on a cart to a public cemetery on the outskirts of the city. There you will be buried in a large communal trench, with a dozen other anonymous poor. There will be no headstone, no name, no epitaph. A small amount of quicklime might be shoveled in on top of you to hasten decomposition and prevent the spread of disease. There is a final, more chilling possibility: to die in the sewers and never be found. You might collapse in a remote, little-used tunnel, a victim of a sudden heart failure or a pocket of choke damp. Your lamp burns out beside you. The slow current of the sewer washes silt and debris over your body, gradually burying you in the very filth you once hunted through. You simply vanish from the world. Above ground, you are just another missing person in a city of millions. Your name is eventually forgotten. You become a permanent part of the underworld, a secret skeleton sealed in a brick tomb. Your final resting place, the very workhouse that consumed your life. Your life story, for all its daily struggles and small victories, is ultimately written in water and slime. It leaves no lasting mark on the world above. You are a disposable component of the great Victorian machine, a human tool used to scour its hidden recesses, and then discarded when broken. The final fate of a sewer hunter is to be erased, your labor forgotten, your name unrecorded, your death a final, silent confirmation of your status in a society that valued the scraps you found more than the life you gave to find them. Your time has passed. The London you knew, a city choking on its own progress, has given way to new centuries. The profession of the shore worker, the Tosher, has vanished, rendered obsolete by the very engineering marvel that once spelled its doom. The world has moved on, powered by electricity instead of coal, communicating by invisible waves instead of messengers. Yet the world you inhabited has not entirely disappeared. It remains, buried but present, a silent, brick-lined foundation upon which the modern city rests. Stand today on a London street, on Victoria Embankment for instance, that grand promenade carved out of the river itself. You are standing directly on the roof of Basilgate's great intercepting sewer. Beneath your feet, the dark river still flows, efficiently and silently carrying away the city's waste, just as it was designed to do. It is a monument to Victorian foresight, to engineering prowess, to the triumph of public health over disease and filth. It is celebrated, rightly, as one of the great wonders of the industrial world. But this triumphant narrative is built upon a foundation of unremembered lives. In the mortar of those millions of bricks, in the deep settled layers of silt that even the most efficient flow cannot entirely scour away, lie the echoes of your existence. The history that is celebrated is one of engineers and politicians, of royal commissions and acts of parliament. The history that is forgotten is your history, the history of the thousands of anonymous men, women, and children who risked everything for a daily crust, who navigated the city's secret shame and paid the ultimate price for it. The city's memory is selective. It remembers the great stink as a crisis that was solved. It does not remember the generations before who lived and died in a state of permanent, unending stink. It remembers cholera as a disease that was conquered by sanitation. It does not remember the faces of those who waded through its very source, whose bodies were often the final, unrecorded casualties of the plague. The official record archives, the blueprints of the tunnels, the tonnage of the bricks, the cost of the project. It does not archive the tremor in your hand from lead poisoning, the raggedness of your breath from a lifetime of inhaling foul air, or the cold dread in your heart as you heard the distant roar of the rising tide. Every so often, a piece of your world surfaces. A construction project, digging a new foundation, might break into a forgotten, bricked-up tributary sewer. They might find old bottles, pieces of clay pipe, or even, occasionally, a human skeleton, a lost soul from your era. For a brief moment, your world intersects with the present. The newspapers might run a small curious article. Experts will be called in to date the findings. It becomes a historical curiosity, a quaint and slightly morbid glimpse into the bad old days. But it rarely evokes the visceral, desperate reality of that existence. It is history, sanitized and catalogued, stripped of its terror and its humanity. To truly understand the story of the Victorian city, one must listen for these echoes. One must imagine that for every grand town hall and ornate railway station built, there was a hidden infrastructure of misery that made it possible. The great wealth of the empire was not just built on trade and conquest, it was also built on the willingness of a society to consign a segment of its population to subhuman conditions, to treat them as a disposable resource. Your life as a sewer hunter is the ultimate, undeniable proof of this. You were the ghost in the machine, the necessary but invisible cog that processed the system's waste. So the next time you walk through a great historic city, think of the world beneath your feet. It is not just a network of pipes and cables. It is a catacomb of forgotten labor, a repository of silent desperation. The clean, orderly modern world is a veneer, and beneath it lies the mud, the darkness, and the stories of those who were forced to live there. Your story. A story that, though it has no epitaph, and is written in no official record, is still embedded in the very foundations of the city, a quiet, powerful, and terrible echo of the true cost of survival.